Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight in success at the college level. My guest today is TJ Pingitore, and he is the founder of Student Success University. And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. It's great to be here.
No problem. So usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Ironically, when I walked in, I realized right up here, Rider University. I'm a Rider Bronc.
Great.
So I graduated in 2000, right down the road.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So let's go back in time in high school. When did you start starting the process for college? Was it freshman year, senior year? When did it all begin for you going to college?
I mean, mentally, I think my parents really did a number on me early, 7, 8, 9 years old even. I mean, I had started going to basketball camps, and I had started getting onto college campuses, and they were smart about it. You know, they almost kind of indoctrinated me into the university life without even me knowing it. And jokingly, by 17, 18, they said, you know, we had a reason for doing it. So I really think junior year of high school, obviously, I kind of went through that same, normal process. Where was I going to apply? How many schools was I going to apply to? It's a stressful, I think, time for a parent and for a student because you've got so many things to consider. Right. Now you even have more things to consider with the pressure on, with how much school costs today. So, my own experience, it was pretty cut and dry. I had 4 schools I applied to. 2 of those I had actually already been to the campuses. So for that part, I knew I knew kind of what aesthetically it looked like and the layout. But for academic and what I was focused on, I knew I was going to go for business, which I think, when you think about it, if you've got a focus, you've got these, so many opportunities that a student can choose from in terms of what direction they're going to go in. Mm-hmm. But if you can isolate it into, I call like a sector, right? So if you have education, you have healthcare, business, potentially STEM, or even, communications, you've got something you're focused toward and you're starting to work with. But business is very still general. So when I got to it, it was confusing, and I had to kind of take it where the school that I was choosing, the way that I looked at it, and the way that I kind of asked my questions, like my senior year of high school, was if I don't want to do this, I need to have a backup plan. That was one of the things my parents were always talking to me about. Don't pick a school where you don't have a backup plan. It was a really great bit of advice that I got. So I knew Rider had a great business program, really strong business program, and if for anything, it would position me better in college and out of college to have on my resume.
Great. Fantastic. So now you graduate from high school, you go to Rider University. What's it like?
So I graduated high school, and I actually worked that summer to save. My grandmother said to me, whatever you make this summer, I'm gonna match you, and that's it, first semester. The rest you're on your own. So I saved $5,900, and I worked really hard that summer. I put a lot away, and she matched it. And that first semester of freshman year, it was good, but then it was like, wow, reality hit for the second semester, and then the next years ahead of having to do that and self-fund it. So when I landed on campus, my experience was great. I really got immersed in the campus life, joined some clubs, organizations right away, had an internship right away, freshman year.
Good.
I didn't wait a second, because when you're on the clock and you're paying for it yourself, I think you're much more cognizant of, having to gain a great experience right away and also gain real work and resume experience as well. Yeah. So not wasting, a lot of time. That was kind of where I sat with it.
Great.
Yep.
So now you graduate from Rider University, and how does one go from Rider University to the founder of Student Success University?
That's a good question. How do you do that? So I think my 5 years of experience, I double majored through college. I internshipped all 5 years, and I really had the opportunity to work with students in a student work program my 5 years in college. So I was able to self-fund my education from that experience, but I really got to see how real resume experience early on is a positive for students and how it allows them really to position themselves. So I had that experience, and I was able to help other students while I was in college get that same experience in this internship program I was in. And when I graduated, I had been really built my network for about 1.5 years before I graduated. I really got to meet people in my field and had 9 interviews set up my 2 months before graduation. So I really tried to position myself that way with all the people that I connected with Now it was time for me to turn the relationship key and open up those doors, and was able to get my first position right out of college with Comcast.
Oh, fantastic.
Yep.
And then, so then you started this business after that?
So fast forward, no. So actually, I've been in kind of the marketing, business development, strategy most of my career, always mentoring and helping students along the way. So, 5 years we launched high-speed internet in Jersey back from 2000 to 2005. 2006, I was in medical supply, sales and marketing, most of the state with all the hospitals. And then really I had a lot of friends at about age 30 that were saying to me, you're going to be too old if you don't get into the online media and the digital media, the internet industry basically back then. That was my original intent, was graduating college, but we had the dot-com burst. So I had to pivot. I had to kind of take my major and kind of reassess where I wanted to be. And I ended up in 2009 in the online media and advertising space. And I really knew offline marketing, but I didn't know the online industry very well. So I knew no matter what, I was going to be adding to kind of my arsenal, my skill set, because I always knew I wanted to have my own business. And having mentored students all along the way, it was something that for me, I don't want to say the word passion, but it really was. I mean, it was something I enjoyed seeing students succeed early, because they say today the struggle is real. That's a funny saying. We change it a little bit. We have the hustle is real here on the shirt, but it's about effort. It's about what you put in. And I think giving students today the opportunity at the ground level right in the beginning to get themselves set up is, for our team, is a super passion, right? It's something that excites us, because we feel like by giving them the direction that we didn't have, that we can provide that information back to them, especially when we talk a lot to the postgrads that recently graduated to see what they didn't get. Gotcha. And we've built a lot of that based around it.
So now, what is Student Success University about?
So Student Success University, to its core, is truly a real-world focus directional for college students, high school seniors to college seniors. And it's really, our tagline is what college doesn't teach. And it's not to be competitive with colleges, it's truly to be complementary to them, because there's a lot of life skills, soft skills, things that postgrads realized from when we talked to them they didn't get out of college, right? So how to brand yourself, how to market yourself, how to sell yourself. Things like, growth mindset and having a purpose right now, not having to figure out your whole life. It's way too difficult. You asked, how did I get to here? It took me 18 years to realize, 1, I wanted to own my own business. 2, I wanted to do it helping students across North America. And 3, oh my God, I'm going to dive in to this whole entrepreneur word and start my own, our own platform and business. It's a good stress, and it's definitely a scary thing. Yeah. But I think the overlying is when you do something that you're passionate about, but you're actually truly feel like you're having an impact with. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than your company. Yeah. It makes it easier, if that makes sense.
So you said something about branded. Students need to brand themselves. What type of information do you give students to brand themselves?
So branding yourself isn't with a cattle prod. First time I say that, people sometimes, they'll, what do you mean? Branding yourself is the start of the whole selling yourself process, right? So branding yourself isn't just taking a selfie, right? That's not what we mean by that. One of the things that we really truly realize is first impressions still today matter. They probably matter today more than they ever have, because there's a lot of industry, or I should say there's a lot of generational stereotypes. There's a lot of perceptions about this next generation, who they are, how they work, culture fit with companies, those things. We want to smash those perceptions because we want students to get out there earlier, present themselves well online and also offline. And one example would be branding yourself. When I first meet you, I have a really thick professional card, whether you're business or not. It's got all your information. It's got your LinkedIn. It starts the story of you. And it's something where people would say, oh, a card. It's not the card, but it's the 6, 7, 8 things that you do along with the card that start to make up the brand of you. So writing content on LinkedIn as a young person is one of our little kind of check-off things where they can start to write about topics, even if they don't know what they want to do. Yeah. They can start to write and show off certain skills that they have and be able to present themselves so when someone sees them, hasn't spoken to them yet, they at least present that first impression that's positive.
That's great. Now, how about social media? Do you teach these students about social media and what's out there as well?
The do's and don'ts. I think when you think about social media, what's relevant today to students, LinkedIn is definitely a big part of that. It's shocking how many students are not on LinkedIn today and are told, you don't need LinkedIn. But if you switch your field and you decided to go a different road, you've got that as a pretty good centralized platform to work with. Mm-hmm. There's groups you can join. There's a lot of things you can do outside of, if you're going to be a teacher and they may tell you you don't need LinkedIn. What if you decide and switch, what if you switch out? You've got at least something that you can work with. Social media today isn't social. I think anybody watching right now knows that. You've really got to be cognizant of what you're posting and what you're putting up there. That's why I think when you focus on content and putting your skill set out there, you can use social media to really boost the impression of you. And keep in mind, branding yourself, you take that brand and you put it into motion and you put it in places to be seen. Yeah. That's the whole marketing yourself component. That's the second phase of kind of what we like to go into.
So now, what are some of the lessons that you teach the students? Is there?
Lessons. So we have what we call core pillars. We kind of break them out into getting yourself, the purpose is first, right? Every students today sometimes have a hard time identifying identification, who they are and what they're supposed to be doing in their life, more so than prior generations. And I don't like to generalize totally, but there are some key things that hit on why. And I think it makes a lot of sense, and especially for parents or academic advisors that are listening, it's really getting their purpose now. And when we give them a purpose and feel like they know what they're doing, our purpose that we talk to them about is your goal is to go on a discovery campaign as a young person and get out there and meet with people. And if you haven't declared your field yet, you got to make decisions on what you don't want to do and what you do. And that's the discovery process. That's another one of our pillars, right, is the discovery. But the mentality behind a lot of it, you've got two mindsets. You've got fixed and you've got growth. And you only have really two choices, right? If you're in a growth mindset, you know that you're practicing. So their confidence, their effort, the actions that they're taking, that's kind of all that first phase that we go into. And we get into really like branding yourself, marketing yourself, selling yourself, and you get into some of the advanced strategies. And you want to stand out today as a student. And Rutgers PR team, one of the questions that they asked recently, well, we're all friendly. I said, well, yeah, you're PR, of course. How can we stand out? What can we do to stand out? And that's a lot of what we look at is different fields. You really have to do some things above and beyond. And we like to hit on a number of those key things within our platform.
What's some of the marketing that you give the students? Is there any marketing that you give them to market themselves?
Sure. So we've got our marketing toolkit. It's one of the things that they'll get. So how to write effective content on LinkedIn, how to get people to write recommendations about you, right? So that it's better that they say some things about you than you yourself. Definitely having a professional card, professional picture. Some topics that may be slightly controversial, like entitlement. We teach students actually how to write about entitlement because we want them to smash the perception of whoever's reading it. Chances are that person potentially could be a recruiter or somebody that could hire them or refer them. And we want that person reading to know the student knows what entitlement is, and that's not them. It's just one example, but we probably have 15 topics like that where it's going to make an impression. It's going to definitely set an impression for who's reading it. Yeah. And then in person, there's a lot of things. We actually teach something really interesting, how to pre-call your career fair. So 3 weeks ahead of time, find out all the companies that are going to be there. And just like this kind of background here, right? If you see all these groups that are coming, pick 3 or 4 that you're really interested in. Find the reps that are coming to your campus, either talking to your campus themselves or finding them online. Reach out to them ahead of time. So when you get to that table at the career fair where there's 6,000 resumes, you're not really standing out. It's very hard to do that. But if you've spoken to the person well ahead of time and you've offered to take them to lunch, and even if they say no, they know who you are because you're probably one of the only ones that's reached out ahead. I did this my senior year, and 7 out of the 9 I had interviews with, ironically, after college. So we've tested this process with a number of students, and it's working.
Yeah, that's a fantastic.
It's preparation. I mean, it's really giving them directives instead of saying just take a look at a website.
Yeah. Now, so networking is a big thing then. What do you give the students some tips on networking?
That's a great question because we've heard by many postgrads, we've spoken to over 900 of them. That's how we got a lot of the feedback and validation from what we're doing. And with networking, it's a lot of colleges go network. That's what you're told to do as a young person. Oh, and go to your career fair and you know, show up at seminars, talk to alumni. That's great, but everyone's doing that. So we talk a lot more about targeted relevant networking, TRN, which is one of our pillars, and we talk a lot how to go where other students aren't. So if you're going to go to seminars off campus, or you're going to find out where your industry is kind of centered, do your homework online, find events. If it's $35 for a ticket, buy it, show up. We always say, get dressed, drive, show up, and don't worry about anything else. Just have your card with you, and be in a place where people you're going to meet are ready to talk to you. Networking today is very much the same, except our whole goal is to put more of the human component back into it. So using technology to position yourself and get your information and get what you need, but don't try to use it to actually connect with people. What we're doing right now and being here, present, it's a lot more powerful than just sending somebody a quick little message.
Yeah.
If you can get in front of them and meet with them, it's way more powerful.
Yeah. So how do students find you? What do they have to do to find Student Success University?
So one of the things we had to think really hard about, and I think this was a challenge, this was definitely a challenge, is our challenge nationally is speaking to both parents and students at the same time. We found a real challenge that colleges, parents, and students are having is the expectation triangle, right? Parents expect the colleges to do X, Y, and Z. The college expects the student to do A, B, and C. And then the parent expects their own expectation of both. And sometimes that doesn't all connect. So what we try to have is really we try to bring a voice that speaks to both parents and students. And we wanted to go where students were. We had an opportunity 2 years ago to write a book, and I have 2 manuscripts. But I realized that if we want to have an impact, students don't read. So if we were just writing the book to get a speaking engagement on campus, we're not really having an impact on students. We're just writing that book just to have that kind of hats off. Mm-hmm. So we said, let's develop a podcast. Let's actually go where they are, which is in their headphones. And I learned a lot in the past year. And I think sitting here right now, I had never done podcasting or video, on TV. And I learned that if you really want to connect with that audience, you do have to go where they are. So we're getting in their ears first, which is the Student Success Podcast on iTunes. We just went live about 2 weeks ago. Oh. So 10 months of content. It was a lot of work, but we did that. And then also on campus, we have an ambassadorship program. So we pre-write a student's resume 6 months ahead, and we show them everything they need to know to get themselves set up for success. Yeah. And then on their own campus, they can be an ambassador for student success, either through the campus or directly through us. So they'll have some story to tell about being a thought leader, and they get a good 6 months of experience doing it. And then, of course, we have our online platform, which we're building right now. Mm-hmm. But we have our site up, which is studentsuccessu.com. So
now the podcasts and the website and stuff, are you going to the universities as well? Do you go there and talk to some of the universities too?
Yeah, so it's been twofold. For the last 4 years, our research centered around talking to postgrads, about over 900 of them, speaking to college advisors and career directors. We went to about 17 different universities to do that. And then we also spoke to parents. The last bit of research was current students. So we're doing some final bits around some of the campuses that are local, just because it's a little bit easier to work within our 2-hour span. But we are going to the campuses now. We've got 3 or 4 on board that are really interested in taking some of these programs. And we have consulting services that we offer. And we're also really excited about getting campuses that are typically about 10,000 or more students a podcast. They're lacking and struggling a bit that we've noticed with Trend, and one of our director of content comes from the academic side. So creating a sense of community on campus is one of the campus's core drivers. A podcast today done right allows them to do that.
So now, which of the groups do you see more that will come to Student Success University? Is it the high school student, is it the college student, or is it the post-grad student? Which one is really utilizing this more on their behalf?
There's the easy answer and there's the reality. So it's a good question. And this is all part of 4 years of research and getting out there and speaking face-to-face with students to really get their feedback and validation. Everyone needs to know how to market themselves and get themselves set up for success, right? There's 21.2 million students across the U.S., 8.1 million are age 25 or up. So I think from a first top level, what we realized is, of course, someone's going to say, you got 8 million right now that you could speak to. They're not your prototypical student, but that's 8 million mature, age 25 and up students we can talk to. So I think that was the first scenario we thought about. But really being able to have an impact on, a positive impact on a young person today, we're looking at groups like athletics, Greek life, student leadership as starting points, because our ambassador program is going to spread nationally. And those leader quality type of students are going to embrace that pretty fast, and they have embraced it. But I think overall, it's going to be really interesting how the parents take what we're putting to market, because again, like I said, our biggest challenge, and it's something we're very open about, we're actually building video around it, is saying, help us with this challenge, because we want to talk to students and parents at the same time. But we're not experts in a dual audience, so we're really working through that to figure out how to do that. And the campus is a big part of it, but I think parents and students together outside of college campus, for us, is just as equally important.
So have you tried anything at the high school level?
We have. We've done some beta groups. We've done 4 or 5 beta groups with about 15 or 20 students apiece, 12 students, really to kind of get what they feel like is doable, that they would do. Because we're building this with the assumption that, and the part of the platform we're building, they're not going to do anything, right? The first 2, 3, 4 times they hear it. But the ability to create that awareness for them early on, it's about when they become aware, not junior year of college, right? We want them to become aware senior year of high school, so that by the time they get through their first year, I call it the year of distraction, which is freshman year of college. I mean, let's face it, it's overwhelming. They've got it in their head. They know that they've got to start to get going. They don't realize they got to start to get going the end of junior year of college, which we saw in a lot of cases was the reality point.
Now, do you find that a lot of students that are freshmen and sophomores try to get in contact with you, or is it more of the, like you said, the junior, senior year college students?
Yeah, a lot of the content that we're putting out, it's from the perspective of a 1 to 4, 1 to 5 year recent postgrad of what they wish they knew early, and they were defining early as freshman, sophomore year. So when a freshman or sophomore hears it, and they're really starting to see what a postgrad didn't get, they almost feel like, wow, I'm learning and I'm picking things up that I could save myself a lot of time, hassle, overwhelm, stress if I just take their feedback and put it into play. And then we take our expertise and we try to make it where it's a step-by-step blueprint, and there's, the student success engine, as we call it, is really geared toward when they become first aware and they pick up and they can go from there. Great. Sometimes it has to work fast if they're a junior, senior in college. Other times if they do it early enough, they've got a lot more time.
Yeah. Now, and then when they graduate from college, what type of feedback are you getting from those students after they graduate? Right.
So I'd say the key point of feedback is they've got a story to tell of relevant experience, and it helps them break that catch-22. It's I'm sure we've all heard, you need a job to get experience, but you need experience to get a job. And it's that end-all conversation where a student, sometimes if they don't have that, has to oversell themselves into an industry that it's a tough sell because they don't have that relevant experience. Yeah. So how do we give them experience, leadership experience, soft skills, communication skills, things that today's hiring manager feels pretty strongly that this generation slightly lacks. Yeah. So that was one of our keys, was to focus on some of the corporate feedback we had as well.
So do you find a lot of students, you need certain characteristics that you feel can drive success? Or is it really just, I can just be somebody that just goes through life, go through school and that's it?
That's a great question. It's a really good question. Characteristic-wise, we say here the hustle is real. And if you have someone who's been working all through high school, they get it, right? If they're just becoming aware of a work environment or a chain of command authority, like something where they have to be to work and they have to be there on time, it's tough, because there was some studies, and I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but there definitely were correlation studies done where the 16 to 19-year-old in 2011, 81% weren't working. Labor statistic about the Long Island, New York, Northern New Jersey area, we were like 94th on the list of 16 to 19-year-olds that were unemployed, 81 point some percent, which meant only 19% were working. Well, if you looked at 2015, 2016, 55% of students that graduated were underemployed or unemployed. Now, did they tie in together? No, but there was enough going around the country of different studies that were together what the graduate percentage of employment was.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I say, wow, like, is it you're just not getting into work mode early and being able to balance? Because we felt really strongly, a lot of the postgrads we talked to were told just focus on your grades. Just get good grades, because the immediate correlation is, well, college is really expensive and we want you to either get a scholarship going to college, so you don't work during high school, just focus on that. Or if you're in college, just make sure you get good grades so you get a good job. But they don't realize that balance is huge. You need both.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show. And usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the parents out there that their sons and daughters are, in the process? What advice do you want to give them?
The biggest bit of advice I would say is when you're picking a college, number one, make sure that it's got enough of an offering that if your son or daughter does change their mind, they've definitely got a backup plan in place. Second probably would be, don't try to choose a field. And this may sound, when people ask, what are your passions, what are your interests, that's the typical questions they ask a student. A lot of students today want to help people. And I think that's great. I want to help people. I give to as many charities as I can. But picking your field based around helping people today is expensive, and I think it's a big mistake. So you can help people volunteer nights and weekends, for sure. Try to pick, when you look at your fields, have a whole list in front of you. This is one of the recommendations we give. Don't choose, but eliminate first. Have a big list in front of you, and a student needs to feel productive. They need to feel like they're making progress. So I think the tip here is eliminate first and put why to it. Start to think really abstractly, and students actually can do this. And some people would say, is that too out of their realm? It's actually not, because they're visual, and when they have something fully in front of them where they're not distracted, they can look at everything. They're crossing it out and they're eliminating, they feel pretty good about it. We've seen some great results with that. And once they get some of the yeses, they can start to do their footprinting within those interests once they've eliminated. Tying off that last, I would say, don't rely on what professors, just what professors say. Professors are great, but they're on campus. You want to be speaking to experts, and you want to reach out to people before you declare your major that are in the fields doing the jobs you think you may want to do. Now, if you don't have an answer to the jobs of what you think you want to do, you need to see what jobs exist within what you chose as your interest and see who's doing that and try to meet with them. This is one of our core things that we teach. It's called informational interviewing. It's where a student flips the script on the interview process, and they actually reach out to you, Anthony, and say, what's it like to host a show? I love your background. I'd love to buy you coffee. And they do that before they hit declare. Because when you hit declare on your field, you're on the monetary clock. So I'd say meet with experts before you really hit declare. And if you've already declared, you want to validate that.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
It's great to be here. I'm really glad to have made it.
Good. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.